Welcome to our casting of Get Assigned. I'm Chief Master Sgt. Dan Connor, your Command Senior Enlisted Leader, Oregon. This podcast is an effort to provide our Oregon National Guard service members, past and present, along with all citizens of the state, a sign from me and the Adjutant General's office before you step into the metaphoric batter's box. I plan to discuss with you pressing issues that are upon our enlisted service, as well as sharing interviews with some of our great citizen soldiers and airmen to gain insight and share best practices. So turn up your listening device and join me for what I hope is an educational and valuable few minutes. Today, I'm privileged to be joined by our new Senior Enlisted Advisor to the Chief of the National Guard Bureau, Chief Master Sgt. Tony Whitehead. Chief, welcome. It's great to have you in the studio with me today over the phone.
Hey, thank you.
Yeah, of course. The Chief and I just closed out a productive Western States tag huddle in Salt Lake City, where we had an opportunity to have a discussion regarding top issues facing our National Guard. We discussed redefining our brand, for example, from an operational reserve or from a strategic reserve to an operational reserve, which in effect will change or affect our recruiting and retention along with appropriate benefits. That's just one of the topics. Team Oregon can expect a trip report from me soon on some more details on that. But now I have the pleasure of your company, Chief, for just a little while longer. And with that, I just want to get started with introducing you to the state of Oregon and anyone else that's listening in. Often, Chief, we ask our soldiers and our airmen to share their story. So today I'm going to ask you to share yours. How did you what made you decide to join the military? How did you end up with the Guard? I know you ended up, at one point at least, I know you were in Florida with the Florida Air National Guard. Give us some of, starting with your early professional career. Give me some.
All right. So I joined the Air Force, the active duty Air Force, in December of 1982 as an 18-year-old that left high school and didn't know what I wanted to do. And I didn't have any plans other than I wanted to get out of Jacksonville, Florida. And I come from, those humble beginnings that people talk about. There were 8 kids in the house, a single mom. And so, either you were contributing to the household or you were contributing to the household. So I joined the Air Force, and I was in a Navy town. And when I joined with the security police. And had no idea what I was getting into, but once I got into it, I really found out it was something that I liked. And my first assignment leaving Florida and joining the Air Force was Ellsworth Air Force Base, South Dakota. So an interesting start for a guy that was born in sun, sand, and beaches. And it was a great career for about 10 years, and then I decided to leave the active component. And I wasn't sure about what I wanted to do after that, but I did know that I was ready to make the transition. And when I joined the Guard, it was by chance, and I met someone, and he talked about the Guard being there in Jacksonville. I joined up, and I never looked back. And it's been a great experience, and the experience didn't just keep me in Florida. It also took me to places like, here in D.C., but in a different capacity. Michigan Air National Guard Base as a command chief there, the state command chief in Puerto Rico, several assignments, and of course, First Air Force Base as the First Air Force Command Chief, Tyndall Air Force Base. And here in the National Capital Region as a senior advisor to the Chief of the National Guard Bureau, where I ran into a great man by the name of Dan Connor. Well, actually, that was in Florida, but I ran into you again just the other day. But it's been a great ride, and an opportunity, I will say, to be a senior enlisted advisor is an amazing opportunity, very humbling. But one of the better jobs I had, in addition to this, was being a first sergeant. So if there are any first sergeants out there, who are you? Because I tell you what, taking care of our people is one of the best things that you can do for the mission. How's that?
Yeah, that's great, Chief. Thanks. I also know a little bit about you. I know that obviously family is very important to you. You have a big family. Give us your view regarding work-life balance.
So I don't believe there's a myth to work-life balance. I think there is one, but it's very individually based. Now, you can say that, you may want to do 8 hours or 10 hours and then get home, but sometimes the job dictates that you may have to spend about 12 hours there. But on the other side of that, when you know, especially if you've got a wife or a significant other, children, or even a pet at home, there are times when you do need to make time for self-care. And our best leaders do that. We can go all in and be there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, but self-care is a part of our leadership ethos. It has to be. When you think about, getting the rest, getting in the PT, or even just getting the downtime in, those things are extremely important to you being able to be effective in accomplishing the mission. So my thought process when it comes to work-life balance is know when it's time to take a knee, for lack of a better term, and refresh, recharge, spend time with the people that are supporting you, that helps you spend those long hours at the job when you don't have to worry about paying bills or taking the dog out for a walk or painting the house, things of that nature. There are people that are helping you do that. Spend the quality time with them, letting them know how much you appreciate it, and that will help you get recharged so that you can get back to the job.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I think I agree with you. I think nothing's more important. I know our tag here in Oregon, that's a definite focus area for him. He wants to ensure that our work-life balance is truly just that, just well-balanced. So, hey, thanks for your perspective on that. With new leadership often comes a new focus, and I use the term focus because we know that almost everything that comes from General Hokanson's mouth, no kidding, is a priority. So I don't like to use priority necessarily because it's all a priority. But there are new focus areas. Can you tell me what's the Chief's new focus area for us?
Well, I will tell you, it's a work in progress, and I think you alluded to that yesterday. A lot of things that are on the Chief's mind, and the biggest thing is making sure that we do the best job that we can as a National Guard of taking care of our folks. Now, I know it may sound like a generic answer, but in that answer, it gives a lot of different perspectives. And one, when we're taking care of our folks, that means training them properly. And part of that training, which he talks about when he has spoken, especially during his Senate confirmation, he likes to use the term interoperability. And I think it's important for us to understand that when he's speaking about that, he's talking about making sure that our folks are trained properly so that when we go out and we are married up with our active component brethren, we've been trained to the same degree with the same equipment, if not better, so that once we step in, there is no worry about whether or not this guy that's coming in, our guy or gal is coming in from, say, the state of Oregon, to work in my tank company, that they know how to do the job. As a matter of fact, they should feel very confident that the person that's coming in from the Oregon National Guard, we'll say our Army National Guard side, that they've got more years of experience out there operating those, the equipment. They've got more years of experience leading our troops, and they've got the training and experience from their civilian side as a force multiplier to help them to be a better asset to the organization. So interoperability is a big one. And that's part, again, taking care of our troops. Making sure that we're resourced properly. And it's not just about equipment, it's about making sure that everything that helps us to get the job done, it's important to our chief. And then, of course, we're looking at down the road a Space National Guard, which he's definitely interested in because, we've already got units that are equipped, that are doing the job. So why not use us just like on the other missions that we have out there? We're well equipped for that. And then, of course, as we see what's happening with, the COVID, the civil unrest, the forest fires, and the natural disasters, as well as we're still doing our Title 10 missions, he wants to make sure that we are doing everything that we can for the total force warrior. That's, the mind, the body, the soul, and the spirit.
Thanks, Chief. I'll agree. I mean, obviously, we've been very busy with domestic operations here in Oregon and throughout the country. One might say that this could be the year of the National Guard, 2020. I mean, we've done so much, and you're right, having that balance and ensuring that we're taking care of ourselves is incredibly important. Thanks. Hey, during your change of responsibility, that ceremony, you made a comment while pointing to your new chevrons. You said, "This is your future." We all know that very few get the privilege to serve at the highest enlisted levels. And I know, Chief, that you're a critical thinker, and there's a deeper meaning rooted in that quote. If I'm correct, can you share what more you meant from that statement?
Well, I was looking at the two young people that helped pin the chevron on me, the private and the airman first class, and When I say the future, there's so many things, just like we were talking about the chief's priorities or, the things that are a concern to him. With me, I think about how we're going to develop, our junior airmen and soldiers to get them to where we are, where I am, where you are as well. And it's one of those things that sometimes we forget that, obviously if you're a two-striper, you're not going to be a command chief master sergeant in your next promotion. But we've got to think about how we're going to get there and how things have evolved over the years. And one of the things that really strikes me when I say this is your future is they are going to get here in a different way than we did. When we think about some of the challenges that we're facing now, one of the things that we can do as leaders better is understand the emotional intelligence balance that we have within us. And that means that we've got a lot of amazing people that are coming in our services and our organizations now that have got some unique life experiences, that have got some great technical expertise that sometimes we need to take advantage of. Because really, when you think about it, Dan, in order for us to effectively lead them, we have got to include them in the thought process of how we're going to lead them. Some of the things that we develop as far as leadership tools have to include their experiences because we can't lead them with our experiences. We have to lead them with their own. Now, we can use our expertise, but we need their experiences to understand how we can get them to where we are. So, and when I say, this is their future, they are going to create what these new chevrons mean for us in our National Guard in the future.
Yeah, that's perfect. Nailed it. And I'll tell you, our tag here uses a quote, every soldier, every airman, a leader. And his intent is to ensure that everybody at every rank and in every position respectfully has a responsibility, and they are expected to operate and lead based on what is appropriate for their rank and their time and their experience. So I think that nests nicely into what you just explained there for us. You also stated, put me to work, and I've heard you say that several times now. So that I'm going to ask another tough question, or a tougher question for sure, from our air component. And this has been an ongoing question or concern from our airmen, is the EPR system. Here in the Air National Guard specifically, the EPR has been considered for modification for a couple of years. Is there any status you can provide on that initiative? And on going in on with that, a second part of that question is, how do you see the value of the ACA as it supplements the future EPR?
Oh, wow. So listen, Chief, we only have an hour, but I'll try to scale down my answer on that one. First, I don't have an update on the any modifications to the EPR. And I'm sure as they do come about, our new Air National Guard Command Chief, Chief Master Sgt. Williams, will definitely get that information out as soon as possible. But I will tell you, I believe the EPR itself, before we get into the ACA, is an extremely effective tool for both sides of that coin. From the side of the person that's writing the EPR, the first word in there is writing. One of the things that we have to make sure that we can continue to do as leaders and as we evolve as leaders is we have to have the ability to write. Clearly conveying our thoughts for our subordinates is extremely important. In order for a task to be performed properly, there has to be some clear, concise instructions given. And the best way to know that you can do that is if you can take the instructions that you have given and turn those instructions into an evaluation. And our folks need to know, without filter, through the ACA process, but once you get to the evaluation process, what they did right, what they didn't do so well, and if there's an opportunity for improvement, how do they improve? And I think the EPR does that. It's also a historical perspective for an individual to see how their writing has gotten better, how their leadership has gotten better, and how they themselves has evolved as a leader too. Because, when you think about it, we don't write evals on the same people for our entire career. At some point, we promote, we progress, we elevate, we evolve. And at some point, you're a command chief master sergeant writing EPRs on other chief master sergeants. You didn't do that as a staff sergeant. So, there's growth in that as well. And then for the person that's being evaluated, they need the truth. We grow from the truth. We don't grow from the things that we don't hear. So when you tell me the truth about how I'm doing, even if it's not something that I want to hear, meaning it's not always going to be, rainbows and unicorns, you're telling me what I need to do to grow. But also there's an expectation that when you're telling me what I need to do to grow, there's got to be some instructions in there, a pathway as to how to grow as well. So please don't ever forget that when it comes to EPR. It is a very big instructional tool, but it's a growth tool for both sides. And then the ACA, I can't tell you how much I value it because, I still do it, and I have an expectation that when I come, even as a senior enlisted advisor, to talk to my 4-star, when we start, I need to know what he expects from me. And once I get that, then I can move out. But every now and again, if my supervisor doesn't come back to me, I go back to them and say, hey, these are the instructions you gave me about what your expectations were. This is where I am. Let me know how I'm doing. Or if you're one of those supervisors that are engaged, you're going to call that person in and say, hey, 3 months ago, this is what I expected of you. This is where you are. You're doing great. Or these are some of the things that you need some help in, or you're not doing these so well. This is what we need to do to get you to that successful point. Long answer, but it could be longer, but I am a huge fan of the EPR and the ACA. And when people say they don't have time to do it, it's just like anything else. We are forcing ourselves to have to do things, in large numbers when we don't take the time to do them when we need to do them.
Thanks, Chief, for that perspective. I'll tell you, I think that we have become, as an Air National Guard, better at that. And I think we're starting to see and understand the value of the EPR. And that's just my opinion, I suppose. But, I'm with you on this. So a question from our land component. The force structure rebalance is still in the beginning stages of development, but it could have a dramatic impact on units within the state of Oregon and other states and territories of the Army National Guard. How might states expect or gain more recruiting support?
That's a good question, and I would say I don't know how to answer, but I kind of do.
Okay.
So I'll tell you, the chief is extremely adamant about supporting our recruiting efforts across the board for both the Army and the Air National Guard. But in the Army National Guard in particular, the different efforts that he's putting in now, and some that I think are going to start pretty soon if they haven't already started, with basing our recruiting initiatives, or should I say our recruiting productivity on a per person, I think we're going to see some huge dividends paid to that. And then there's got to be some focus on those different MOSs where we're struggling, and we got to put some emphasis on them. But we got to know too from the leaders at all levels, what exactly they're looking for, and how best to go after it. And sometimes one of the best things that we can do to help us to get to that point is, part of our recruiting effort has to include some of the folks in an MOS being a part of the recruiting initiative to say, hey, we need to bring you with us so that we can talk to some of those people. So when they ask some of those questions that we need to be able to answer, we got a subject matter expert with us. Don't know if that gets me to the answer that you want, but that's where I am right now with the answer as far as I know.
Yeah, that's good, Chief. So let's change gears, a little pivot real quick to some enlisted development. And this is senior enlisted joint development specifically. We've heard the SEAC talk about joint enlisted development. And I'd say our current joint enlisted PME arguably isn't as good as it could or should be. What's your perspective on joint development as it applies to the National Guard? Has there been any discussion focused on evolving or improving our joint senior enlisted PME?
So there's always been discussion about this one, Chief, with regard to finding opportunities for our enlisted PME to evolve, especially joint PME. I will tell you, the Army and the Air National Guard, we have a great opportunity to do that within the ranks at every respective state, and sometimes we miss the mark. There are some states that do great at it. As a matter of fact, when I was part of Michigan, they were very intentional about professional development happening at the junior enlisted ranks, actually all levels, and they made sure that they invited as many Army as they did Air so that they could be in the same room, and they can talk their respective languages and then start to understand the languages that they're talking, so that at some point as they grow together as an organization, especially during our SPPs and things like that, now you've got people that have a better understanding of each other. That also leads to opportunities outside of the state. So when we're looking for opportunities for our people to grow, now we've got airmen who haven't been in this cyclone of just talking Air Force their entire career, and we got a senior SEAL that doesn't know how to talk Army. but they've been doing it as they come up. And so, when we start looking at our staff sergeants on both sides, or our tech sergeants and the staff sergeants on the Army side, we've got folks now that we can look for better opportunities with them, because now they understand what it means to talk a different service's language. Again, that's kind of like in the National Guard wheelhouse. And in order for us to develop more, we've got to get the hunger for it. One of the things that I learned through conversations and my experiences too is that I'm sure you've heard of the InLead course. And what I found is that we're not marrying up the InLead course with our state partnership programs. And I don't know if that's for the Army side as well, but I think we're missing opportunities for marrying up the InLead course with state partnership programs, because we're talking about international leadership, for our NCOs to develop. But we're not putting them in the course where they can learn more about how to function outside of, the distance learning courses that we have for SCJ 1 and 2. And I think that's one of the avenues that, one, I want to pursue. And then, I'm definitely looking for feedback from the masses about how best that we can do things in a different manner to, to reinforce and do better as far as our enlisted joint PME.
Yeah, that's great to hear, because I'll tell you, I think not many will argue the fact that joint PME, or joint education, is incredibly important and valuable. I just think that some of our current tests, or current CBTs, for example, are just they're incredibly comprehensive. Don't get me wrong, but there's so much information in that, and it's a difficult way to retain the information with a 40 or 45 hour CBT. It's just. And
I tell you, Chief, I did my feedback, which amazed me, because that was like another module itself. But I took the time to do the feedback on that, because I agree with you 100%. There's a lot of great information in there, but to go through all those modules and then to have one test at the end to where you're going to be able to recall all that information. I don't know who decided that was the best course of action to make sure that we're getting good information to use outside of the computer itself, because that's a lot. And I'm sure I don't know if you did it, but I'm sure it was with me that I couldn't retain all of that. But I would have loved to have been able to go back to it at some other time, which is what I also put in my critique, was that's a lot of good information that you told me to take a test on, but I can't go back to it and refer to it,
right,
as I even deal with, my state partnership program, which would have been some great information to go back to, to recount some good information that I could probably use dealing with, our allied countries.
Yeah, great point. I mean, it's not like a textbook we can have on our bookshelf and reach back to it one day and look at it. It just doesn't have the capability doesn't exist there.
No, but and I tell you what, that is a good question, and I hope that as a result of it, you get some good feedback or some good suggestions about how we could best get after doing it either better and differently.
Yeah, thanks. I hope so too. So as you know, there's also a beta test currently being conducted in select states, providing federal tuition assistance to Air National Guard members. Can you provide us any update from that test?
Well, right now, I can give you some general information, but the specifics, we don't see the numbers yet, the metrics. In certain states, obviously where education is as valued or is promoted more than others, you see great interest in it. And then, of course, a couple others where it's not that bad, but our Air Guard and our Army Guard brethren, they're waiting for opportunities in a lot of our different states where we haven't had it in the past to use these dollars. Unfortunately, the thing that we have to do is we have to continue to promote it. Just like other benefits that we have, there are certain things that are important to us. We have a way of working them into as many conversations as possible. But those that aren't, is like, we'll talk about it, when someone else brings it up. So I encourage those that when the opportunity presents itself to use tuition assistance as it comes, by all means do. And it's just like our Senior Enlisted Joint PME, which, we just talked about. It's kind of rough, but if we want to see changes, we've got to get people involved, and they've got to let us know how they feel about it based on experience and not just, opinions. And I know you probably saw today where they announced that the Air Force is reducing the tuition assistance to $37.50.
Yeah, I did see that.
It's a challenge, and obviously, our DoD is looking for efficiencies. But one of the things we have to remember is that the things that we want, the benefits that we say that are important to us, we have to utilize them.
Yeah. All right, I'm going to switch to a very serious topic, and it's suicide prevention specifically. We've seen improvements in Oregon as far as numbers are concerned, but you and I think most of us will agree, any number greater than 0 is bad. So we know that it continues to be a problem for the National Guard soldiers and airmen. What do you think as an institution we should be doing differently or more of to help prevent suicides?
I think everything that we're doing right now, we need to continue to do more of. To add something in the mix, it just makes it difficult because just like a lot of other things, when you start adding things, I mean, if there's something great that can help us to do it better, by all means, yes. But we have to be careful not to add so much more to that we don't start to put emphasis on those things that are working. I will tell you, the COVID environment, as some people thought, would be a challenge when it came to suicides. To me, I believe what it did was it challenged us as leaders, whether we're formal leaders or informal leaders, to become more attuned to what's going on in the lives of our subordinates. What I mean by that is, there was this challenge for us older guys and gals to start learning things like Teams and Zoom and other forms of social media to stay contacted with our subordinates, stay in contact with them. What that also did was it also made us keenly aware that we were not intentional as we have been in the past, or we should have been in the past, about reaching out to our subordinates to make sure they're okay. Because we had these social media platforms available, but we didn't use them because we didn't want to.
Yeah.
And we didn't want to, but that didn't mean we picked up the phone or drove over to their homes. We just didn't do it. But now we are. And then, to me, one of the things that has evolved from this, and we'll get more to the question of suicide, is we've got other opportunities from our informal leaders that are letting us know that we need to continue to reach out to our folks using these other social media platforms and other means when possible, just to find out how they're doing. Not when things are bad, but when things are going great. Because sometimes when things are bad, it's always really bad when they tell us. So the constant communication is extremely important. It doesn't always have to come from the command chief master sergeant or the first sergeant. It can come from that first line supervisor or a teammate that sometimes, and you know as well as I do, they're going to talk to their battle buddy or their wingman more so than they'll talk to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And
when we do talk to them, we have to mingle in our conversations. Just like I said a moment ago, things that are important to us. We have to kind of find a way to just integrate in our conversation things about getting help. Help for problems with relationships, mental health issues, finances, whatever the case may be. And if we are constant and consistent about those things, I believe we'll probably see some challenges that we used to have in the past. They start to erode a little bit because maybe not a good word, erode, but I would say we probably see our folks start to reach out to us a little more or even respond to us with some more intimate details about what's happening in their lives if we're more consistent about reaching out to them.
Yeah, I really like the point that you brought up when it's shared with us that things are bad. Things are usually really bad by then. And to be able to communicate and stay in touch with our subordinates, our friends, our coworkers, even when things are good, is very important. Yeah. All right. The last question I got is from the air side, for the air component. Realignment of the federal technicians to the AGR program has been challenging as it pertains to the force management. What's the desired end goal percentages per status for realignment?
So, there was a target when they first talked about it, and it's changed a little bit, and I don't have an exact percentage for you now, but I know that they wanted to get it to somewhere in the neighborhood of about 65%.
Yeah.
And, as we talked about as senior enlisted leaders the other day, though that's great for us if at Guard Base USA they were thinking about bringing our younger soldiers and ceremony or airmen in this point you're talking air side, and setting them up for a career so that they could utilize it and get the most bang for your buck. Because when we bring in our senior NCOs and they don't have the TAFMs in, that does hurt force management. But that's a leadership decision at the respective installations, so I'll leave that at that. One of the things I think we're going to be challenged with, as we talked about as senior enlisted leaders, is how we utilize our folks in natural disasters, in call-ups, and things of that nature. And of course, long-term effects about that is the budget. But with the new retirement system,
blended retirement
there's somewhat of an offset. But there's going to be there's so much more to come. I think when it was rolled out, it was just going to be, we talked about making the changes, and we'll have that balance, or not so much a balance, but we'll have more of our technician forces being AGRs, and we'll have them. They'll be available to work 24/7, at Guard Base USA or wherever they are. But then there are other parts of what our guardsmen do that aren't tied to a base. So I guess my answer to that is there's going to be more to come, because as it evolves, as we see, once we're done with the realignment, and we start looking at our manning documents, and we start looking at the opportunity to utilize our forces, there'll be more challenges and more questions.
Yeah.
All I'll say, in addition to that, is wherever you play a role, and whoever's listening, wherever you play a role in making a decision about who you're going to change from your technician force to your AGR force, please think long term about it, because in the short term, it could be great for an individual, but even in your question, Chief, which I think is great, force management is huge when you're talking about how you're going to make that change. And it also rolls into a little bit of force development too, because we've got to get a return on the investment. We've got to make sure that our organization is set up for success, once that decision is made.
Yeah, I think it's really, truly a primary focus for many of our senior enlisted folks is the force management piece. It's something we need to stay close to and understand so that we can advise our commanders, because it truly is one of the more important pieces and parts of our ability to influence and make things right. So I agree wholeheartedly. Thank you. Hey, with that, Chief, I know you're a busy man. We've got things to do. I'm going to close the book on this, and thank you again for spending the time with us. It's important that we all get to know who our leaders are near the top, and I can tell you, as I was talking to some others, it wasn't always clear, who's there, and I think as we're in junior ranks, sometimes we're uncertain who's at the top and who are the people that are influencing change and influencing strategic decisions. But I think this was a great privilege for all of us here in Oregon to get a chance to meet you and understand where you're coming from, and some information from your office is incredibly important, and I truly, truly appreciate the time you spent with us today. So thanks again, Chief. No kidding.
Hey, and thank you, Chief. And I want to tell you, obviously, you got to do it. I'll throw a little love back your way, my friend. Thank you for the leadership you have there in the great state of Oregon. You can always say, hey, it's all about my soldiers and my airmen. And yeah, it's true. It really is. The soldiers, the airmen, and their families, and your civilians and your veterans. But it takes great leadership. It takes the person with the right spirit, a humbling spirit of service. But they have that passion in their heart to lead from the front, so that they can be the example that makes the men and women that are serving want to continue to serve. So I appreciate you for that. And like I said, and you recalled me from my ceremony, put me to work, because I'm going to be here for 4 years, and I don't want to be a figurehead. I want to make sure that there's some product, some productivity out of my time here and our time together.
Yeah. Thanks again, Chief. No kidding. Appreciate your time. Look forward to another call, another day. I'm sure we'll have some opportunities to spend some time together, and I can tell you it's a true privilege. Thank you.
All right, Chief. Hey, you have a great day, and again, thanks for this opportunity.
In closing, I'd like to thank the Oregon National Guard Public Affairs Office and Sergeant First Class Holden for producing this podcast. Stay tuned for our next episode, which will highlight in discussion a very important ingredient of our core values. Never forget, every soldier, every airman, a leader. This is Chief Connor signing off.